What's up, guys? Welcome back to PB&J. I'm here with Brian and Patrick, and we have a pretty heavy episode today. A lot of big news coming out of DC this week. We didn't jump on it right away. Gave it a couple of days to see what other news dropped out. So there's some stuff trickled out of there, but pretty crazy stuff we'll get into. But before that, what's up, guys?
Hey, how you guys doing? Everything's good here.
No one applied to DC Comics lately. Any jobs?
No, I'm still on my DC Comics.
Yeah, try to get them before the bottom falls out here.
That's right.
So for those that don't know, this past Monday, DC Comics went through a major shakeup. Tons, I forgot the number. I think it was like a third of their company got laid off. Oh, here it is. It's a third of its editorial team got laid off. And we're talking heavy hitters. We're talking the editor-in-chief, senior editor, VP of branding, VP of marketing, other senior editors. And what that means is when you're firing editors, you're basically canceling comics because if there's no editor, there's no comic. So they didn't directly fire artists and writers, but that's going to end up happening when these editors we're working on are canceled. So we had this massive layoff from the comic side. The DC Universe app was almost completely laid. Almost all employees were completely laid off. So that app will be gone soon. If you guys have it, enjoy it while you can. It's going to be gone really soon. It's going to be folded into HBO Max. And they also surprisingly cut the DC Collectibles line, or not line, company that they produce toys and statues and shirts and merch. They just gone. That thing is gone. So now there's no more toys being produced by DC right now. Most likely they'll end up licensing stuff to Hasbro, Mattel, maybe even McFarlane Toys, but they are no longer producing their own stuff. So, what did you think about this, Patrick, when we sent you the article about what's going on?
Yeah, it's bad. It's just unfortunate. I don't know what's going to happen. It seems like the company it won't survive. They're not going to get new readers. I don't know. It's pretty bad news. Good thing that I read mostly Marvel.
Yeah, and they keep saying, oh, we're going to keep focusing on comics. Comics aren't going anywhere. Or the trades, nothing's going to be going anywhere. It's going to be the same, but like, it's hard to believe, right? Because you cut the, how are you going to produce comics when you're cutting your people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And before this, there was some other stuff too. You had way back in February, the first domino to fall was when Dan DiDio, the co-publisher, was fired. And the rumor at the time was that he was implementing a new story that not a lot of people were backing. A lot of people weren't happy with it. It was called. It was initially rumored to be called 5G, and I think Tuesday, DC announced that it was going to be called Generations. And this story was going to kind of mess up the timeline again. So this was the synopsis came out, and what it was they were going to age up all the heroes that we know right now: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and they're going to age them up almost real time. No, I mean, not exactly real time because Superman, Batman came out in 1939, 40. But they're going to age them to where they were older, maybe even retired, and then younger characters were going to take their spots. So it might have been Connor Kent would have been Superman, and Damian Wayne was going to be Batman, a new Wonder Woman, a new Flash. And then they were also going to alter the timeline to where Wonder Woman was the first DC superhero, since she debuted before World War I and stuff. I guess not a lot of people were fans of this because they had messed up the timeline with New 52, and then they fixed it with Rebirth, or they started fixing it with Rebirth, and then they just finished it with Doomsday Clock, which came out last year, and then this new timeline was just gonna mess it all up again. And that storyline has been canceled. That's what they announced on Tuesday. And oh, Patrick, this is interesting. They were gonna release an issue 0 of this comic,
right?
And they destroyed all the copies.
They destroyed all of the copies. Like all of them, or are there some available?
That's what I'm wondering, if there's any got out there.
You better get those.
They said they destroyed them all, and I'm like, I wonder if a box fell off a truck somewhere, you know?
Those will be worth some money.
That's kind of like that Elseworlds, the 80-page giant.
Yep.
Just a few got out. So
I'm sure somebody has some.
Yeah.
For sure. You'll see it on eBay in like 2 months.
Yeah, it's called DC Generations. So you gotta keep your eye out on that on the eBay. See if any of those escaped and got out there. So yeah, that was February, and then we had the shutdown. We had the quarantine, the lockdown happened, and during that quarantine, DC separated from Diamond Distributors. And Brian, you were looking into this, right?
Yeah. So I was reading like opinions from people who own comic book stores and everything, and some people were for it and some were against it. The people who were upset about this change, they were really backing Diamond. And I read that like Diamond will actually like loan money to comic book stores, so they feel like a loyalty to them. I mean, this is all new to me. I didn't think they do that, right? Like
I didn't know that. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So so those were the type of people that were mainly against this. But for those who were for it, like one thing that they pointed out is that you have to choose the comic books. Like when you're a comic book store, you have to choose from their list. And there's some indie comic books that you don't even hear about because there's like a minimum buy number. I think it's like 750, or there's like an X number that you have to hit. So like a lot of these small these new up and coming comic books that are coming out, like they get no visibility. So there's a lot of politics around that too, right? So like if the right people are trying to grease the wheel a little bit and kind of like want to promote a comic book more than others, they probably have the opportunity to do that. So other than like them just like publishing books, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on too. So it's, and then like John, like you mentioned, like when we were talking, like they pretty much control the price too.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it hard for some comic book stores to like have to like keep up with it, and they probably have like minimum orders they have to order from, and a lot of things that has to go on, right, to like buy books from them.
Yeah, and then you also had that weird thing where if you didn't sell a comic, you sent it back, but you had to rip the cover off.
I think that's a good thing though, right? Because that protects the comic book store from losing money. So I mean, I think that's a cool thing, but it's like I'm kind of like in the middle with this, and like DC's plan was to move to Scholastics, which I think they did that because they wanted to get into like the elementary schools, like book ordering.
Yeah, books orders. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, because I remember having that when I was a kid, and you can order books from there. And if you have comic books on DC comic books on there, then you can reach out to the kids through there versus like having them go to a comic book store, which is a lot less likely to happen nowadays. So I get why DC made that change, to save money and also to try to reach out to the new fans. So yeah, but there's there's maybe John, you can talk about like what your opinion is from a comic book collector or a comic book reader on what you think about this.
Since comics have been back for about 2 months now, I have noticed when comic shops opened and they kind of lifted the restrictions on them and they started sending comics out. DC, because they didn't go through Diamond anymore, they did their own thing. They went right back into stores immediately. They started sending all their stuff out. But what's funny is that like they had hiccups in that like issues were coming in out of order. So like I would go get Batman, let's say Batman, and they would go, oh, Batman, issue 44 came out, but don't read it yet because 43 doesn't come out till next week. So there's weird stuff like that. And then there was weird stuff too, where like some stores weren't getting their orders. So like, let's say, like the guy told me last week that he didn't think, I don't remember what comic it was. Oh, Deceased. No. Death Metal issue 2 didn't come out. Like it just didn't come out. So he goes to another comic shop and they have it. He was like, hey, how'd you guys get Death Metal 2? And they're like, well, we just ordered it like normal. And he's like, I didn't get it. So his shop didn't get it because of this new system, So there's definitely been some kinks in there. And as a reader, it was kind of frustrating because like I had books that I couldn't read. I had to put off to the side. And then I had a comic like DC Death Metal that I should have got, but I didn't because my store didn't get it. So now I have to hunt it down. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas with Diamond, everything comes in, because they're already established and stuff, so everything comes in normal. So for instance, Marvel, they didn't jump right back into the stores. They kind of hung back and got everything lined up. So one week you would get maybe 1 or 2 comics, and then the next week maybe only 1. And then not until I want to say late last month is when it looks like their schedule is starting to get back to normal. And maybe because they're with Diamond and stuff, they were able to hold back and get everything set before they released it. So it's been weird from a reader's point of view. It's been weird. Talking to the owner, she was kind of on the fence about it because like she's like, okay, cool. The books could be cheaper, but they're kind of also, it seems like they want to be like an Amazon style to where like I could just order from them, and now you're cutting out the middleman, you're cutting out the comic shop. And so that, could eventually hurt the comic store. We haven't seen that yet, but that's something that could come down the road. So she was on the fence about it too. So it's weird. It's a weird situation. And it's so new. It's only been a couple months. Like we can't really gauge it yet. But yeah, I mean, I remember when that dropped, it was like, whoa, DC dropped Diamond? Like, holy crap, that's like the standard. So that was, that happened a few months ago. And then maybe like, what was it, like a month ago, Brian, where it looked like AT&T was going to sell off Warner Games?
Yeah, they put it up for sale. And the rumor was that they were looking for someone to buy it for $4 billion. So like, let's see. So like their gaming division, like it comes with multiple studios. So Rocksteady Studios, TT Games, NetherRealm Studios, Monolith Productions, Avalanche, and like they have their own WB games. So like studios like Rocksteady, they make those Batman games. Mm-hmm. And then NetherRealm, they make Mortal Kombat. Mm-hmm. So that's how you get Mortal Kombat with like DC crossovers and stuff. It's because they have the right to the property. And WB Studios, they make those like Lord of the Rings games, and possibly a Harry Potter game later in the future. But they have
that's right. Yeah,
they have the rights to all those Warner Brothers movie characters. So they put it up for sale, and then just about also on Monday, I guess, because of the layoffs, they changed their mind. They decided to keep the gaming division and took it off the sell. They took it off the sell block, I guess. So they're gonna continue making games for now.
Yeah, I wonder. If, I don't know, because like if you have the Warner Brothers library, like potentially, man, you can come up with some sick games.
Yeah.
You have the whole Warner Brothers movies, right? You had the Mad Max game, which was really good. Maybe they do, more of that.
Right.
Like you said, the Harry Potter RPGs, like that could be huge. Um,
Yeah,
so
they've done
I,
some Lord of the Rings games, but
yeah,
they could do a lot more. Like they could make a huge,
yeah,
multi-game like story, and of course the Batman games, right? They were awesome. So
yeah, yeah. Maybe they just figured, you know what, the potential's there. Let's just hold on to it.
yeah. So the latest rumor is that well, I mean, it's not a rumor anymore that they're doing a Suicide Squad game.
Hmm.
So that's the next thing that they have lined up.
Yeah, and there's that DC Fandom event coming next Saturday, which is supposed to cover everything DC, including toys and the comics and stuff. And now I don't know how that's gonna be awkward, man. Like, do they just, if you had a panel for like these sick toys coming out, is that just panel gonna be gone, or are they gonna just roll like if nothing happened?
What was this always announced like even before the pandemic, or did they just or did this just come out of nowhere? Because I didn't hear about this until last month. This
What's
DC
that?
fandom, the DC fandom.
Um, I think it's only been a month or two. I think it was kind of like their replacement for Comic Con. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah, I think this was like, okay, well, we're not going to Comic Con, so let's just do our own thing. It's only been around like a month or two, so I think, yeah, I think after Comic Con was canceled, I think it's when they started putting this together. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be crazy. Like, they're talking with all these layoffs and stuff, uh, that the comics are gonna change a lot to where really they're just gonna focus mainly on Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League. They're gonna just pump those characters. Just That's where the focus is gonna be. And I don't know if there are gonna be a lot of comics canceled. I don't think they'll cancel stuff like the Flash or Green Lantern, Aquaman. I don't think they'll, or Harley Quinn. I don't think they'll cancel those characters. But I think books like Green Lantern Corps, Green Arrow, Hawkman, Justice Society. I think books like that, Justice League Dark, are not gonna make it. I think they'll kill those books. Swamp Thing, Constantine. I think those are probably going to go away, and they're just going to be more Batman, more Superman, more than you can handle. You know what I mean? So that's going to be interesting.
How do you think they're going to end those titles, though?
They probably won't. They probably just cancel it. If the editor's gone, like, what can you do? It'll just be like, oh, next issue is last issue. That's it. Get ready for another Batman comic. I'm wondering. I was gonna say Birds of Prey, but I'm not sure since they're closely associated with Batman. I wonder if they'll keep them around. But definitely not like some of the, like, I think some of the fringe characters I think are gonna go, or not even fringe, just not as popular.
Yeah, I'm like I see both sides to this, right? Like on one hand you want to build new characters so that you have something to draw from, like either to new fans or to the movies or video games, or toys. You need those new characters. But on the other hand, they've been struggling with keeping readership. Their movies has not been doing that great, compared to Marvel. So they need to focus on, on those core characters and making them better. And they need to work more closely with the movie studios and give whoever's directing the movie more free reign to like make their own decisions if they are fans of the comic. So similar to, like we see that with Marvel, right? Like you have one guy, Kevin Feige, just managing the whole thing because he sees a whole picture instead of just bringing in one guy, one director. They make one movie and then like all the knowledge is lost, and in the next movie it's like a completely different story.
Yeah.
Like you don't see the tie-ins, like so they need to focus, right? So I guess like for the next 5 years or so, um, if they try that, just focus on the core characters, start to put out some more better quality movies, then that would be a good start to kind of maybe leap back to creating new characters again once they have the core foundation set up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a long time ago, I was at Comic Con and they DC they debut their animated features on Friday, and I remember going to one and I forgot which one. It was it might have been Batman. It might have been Batman Under the Red Hood or something, and then afterwards they were talking to the director and stuff, and someone asked, "Hey, are you guys gonna make a movie, an animated movie, not Batman and Superman, right?" And I don't know. I think it was Bruce Timm. He said he goes, "Well, we would, but you don't buy it." And the kid was like, "What?" And he's like, "We just put out Green Lantern, a Green Lantern movie. No one bought it. So he's like, the only ones that sell for sure are Superman and Batman." So yeah, so even in the animated movies, yeah, that's been their focus, Superman, Batman, and now it looks like that's how the comics are going to go too, Superman, Batman, and then the movies are probably going to be Superman and Batman. That's it. Um, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting about what's going to happen over the next few years. I was talking to with Patrick earlier. I think, in my opinion, I've seen some stuff like this online, and it makes sense. Within the next year or two, they could just stop publishing comics altogether. And if that were now, and I don't mean they would, you wouldn't see Superman, Batman comics anymore. It would just be licensed out to another company. So you might see IDW Comics, who only do licensed comics. They do like GI Joe, Transformers, stuff like that. I can see them. It'd be IDW presents Superman, IDW presents Batman. You'll see them in another format, and just because AT&T they just don't. It doesn't seem like they really. I mean, they bought Warner Media for $85 billion. They got to start making that money back. So they're looking through all their businesses and they say, okay, which ones don't make money? Oh, DC Comics, they don't make money. They start making the cuts. So I can just see them, like I said, a year, 2 years, they go, you know what? The comics aren't selling. They're still not selling. Let's just cut it. There's talk like maybe even Marvel can license it, and then you'll have Marvel and DC under one roof. I don't know how plausible that would be. It'd be dope. It'd be super dope. You'd have all these crossovers and stuff. I don't know if that's realistic. But something like that. I think that's gonna be I think that's the end game for what's gonna happen. Eventually, DC Comics just stops publishing comics and they start licensing everything out, and then just focus on the movies and the games and the other stuff.
If they license the comics out to someone else, like who controls the story and the characters? Do you still have say or in
yeah,
that, or?
Yeah, that's normally how licensed stuff works. If let's say IDW is doing a Batman comic, the Warner Brothers still screen it. They'll be like, oh, okay, this is cool, and if they start seeing stuff they don't like, they can jump in there, be like, no, we don't like this story. Batman wouldn't do this, Superman wouldn't do this, and then they'll have to change it. But they wouldn't have any like day-to-day creative control though. Like it'd be the writer and the artist would be doing their thing, and then just DC kind of would just keep an eye on it and make sure that if they don't get too crazy with it, like they don't turn Batman into the Punisher or something like that. You want to keep the Batman character consistent. I think I think I know, looking at it. Yeah, like there's an article on the Sci-Fi Wire article. It says Warner Media doesn't want to be in the comic business; it wants to be in the character business, right? So they're just going to focus on their IP and franchising and licensing. Yeah, and it's great, and you know, it's like you're bringing up with the movies. You know, Marvel, even because Marvel doesn't make Marvel comics. They don't make that much money either. I mean, they don't. I mean, they do outsell DC, but it's not like they're making billions of dollars off the comics. But their comics are they develop the stories and the IPs that they adapt to the movies, and the Marvel movies are just, I mean, they're just print money, $1 billion. Every single movie is $1 billion. So for Disney, they see Marvel comics and they're like, oh, we're making a big profit off them. Not really, but down the road with their movies, that's where they make their big money. And so they leave Marvel alone. Disney's been very hands off with the comics. They don't mess with them. They let them do their thing, and it runs its own entity. And they won't mess with them. There's no layoffs. There's nothing like that. It's, you know, it comes down to the movies, and Warner Brothers wasn't making that many movies, the big money movies. Me and Patrick were talking about how, like, you know, Aquaman is their only $1 billion movie. Wonder Woman's probably the best. Right? Would you say, Patrick? Wonder Woman's probably the best one.
Yeah, I think it was the best one that they've made, and then you see Avengers right after that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, it was mediocre.
But you know, Wonder Woman was their best movie, and it made like 700 million, which is good. But then, you know, Justice League lost. No, they lost their ass on Justice League. They lost their ass on Batman vs Superman. Man of Steel did okay. Suicide Squad was the surprise hit. That one actually made a lot of money, but then Birds of Prey came out early this year and bombed horribly. So, yeah, they just can't. The movies, it's just not a consistent enough money maker to keep the comics relevant to AT&T. And that's what it really comes down to, is AT&T's in charge now, and they're just looking at dollars and cents. That's it.
Do you think that if the movies had done better, that there wouldn't be this problem right now?
Yeah, I think so. If they were like Marvel and they were just cranking out the money, I think they wouldn't have cared. They'd been like, oh, fine, whatever.
Right.
You know, they would use that same reasoning. They go, oh, you know, these our comics we turn those into the movies. Oh, yeah, all right, it makes sense. It's just like Marvel does.
Yeah, like having it in comics helps too, right? Because like you have early screeners of like what people like and don't like through comics. You don't have to invest hundreds of millions of dollars on a new character, take a chance, and then it might bomb. You know, like with comics, you can make a new character, you can introduce them in the game, and then see what people think, and then like later on you can put them in a movie.
Yep.
Or even like a cartoon series, you know. So there's a lot of things you can do, like just by going through the comic book route as a use it as a tester now, right? Like you have to change the way you think. Like people have to think about comics now. It's not like the main source of getting stories. Like nowadays, it's all through the movies, but the comic books are a good place to start. So.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. There's two characters that are the perfect examples of that, and that's Miles Morales and Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. You know, Miles Morales, he's been in the comics for about 10 years. He came in, proved super popular. They brought him into the Marvel Universe. He showed up in Spider-Verse, which was a massive critical success. People are seeing him, you know, in that movie. And then he came out in the Spider-Man game last year, and now he's going to come out in another game this year. So he's getting his face out there. People love him. So, you know, when does he get into the Marvel Universe? It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. You're going to get Miles Morales in the Marvel movies because people love him. And then Kamala Khan, she debuted, you know, same around 10 years ago in the comics. Fans loved her. She got her own book and stuff. And then she's coming out in the new Avengers game. Coming out next month. She's gonna get her presence out there, and then next year she's getting her own show on Disney Plus. And it's all because it's almost like product testing, right?
Right.
They proved her worth in the comics. People love them. Cool, get them up, and now if she goes to Disney Plus and makes a huge hit, bam, then she's gonna end up in the movies, and there you go. There's more money. And that's why Disney keeps Marvel comics around.
Yeah, but going back to what I was saying, right? Like for DC, they're in a position where they need to have a strong core because
Hmm. Hmm.
just their core characters are not cutting it right now. So they do need to make a change. I mean, I don't know if this is the right change, but um, we'll see. In the next
Yeah.
years.
I mean, and I mean, it sucks too if DC were to do that and stop publishing and license them out. Like, man, that's. I mean, I've been reading DC comics since I was a kid. Patrick, you too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, man, like, Patrick was saying, earlier, I told him, like, what if IEW presents DC? Like, Patrick was not a fan, right?
No, I'm definitely not a fan. But I'm wondering if they could turn this around if their movies get better. Like they have the potential to make great movies. There are a lot of great stories that I've read, and if they make those into movies and they do well, they could turn DC around. I'm sure that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's got to be. I think within these, like this next year or two, they gotta push it. They gotta turn it around. They gotta either, make the movies way more profitable. Um, the stuff that was on DC Universe now on HBO Max, like, if those are big hits, like the Harley Quinn cartoon's a big hit, and Doom Patrol, I haven't seen. I've heard great things about it. Probably not a lot of people saw it because it was on DC Universe, but maybe on HBO Max, people start seeing it and they're like, "Oh, this show's great." It brings the visibility back up, and who knows, maybe they can turn the ship around. And um, no, I don't want to say hire more people, but like, just all of a sudden the cuts stop. There's no more layoffs, no more none of that, and maybe the comics start to grow again. And there's still one more big name out there. I'll have to cut that all out. uh, but Jim Lee is still there. He was the CCO and the publisher. They removed the publisher title from him, so he's still the CCO. But like he got demoted.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens with Jim. If Jim gets cut down the road, it's like, oh man, like there's no hope. You know what I mean? That's Jim Lee, and they just cut Jim Lee. Like shit. But he's still there. He's hanging in there. And there's talks too that DC just launched a Black Label line, which was kind of like a rated R mature line, and some cool books were coming out of there just over the last year or two. And they fired the editor who that was like his idea, his whole baby. They fired him, so it's like, okay, well there goes. Are they going to keep the Black Label line? That was a pretty cool line. Like, are they done with it already? They could be, but nope, just Batman, Superman. That's all we're doing.
So when do you think you'll start seeing these changes, like from like at a comic book store?
It will take a few months because the comics are normally like 3 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be, yeah, I would say I probably won't see any big difference until like January, I think. I think once the new year rolls around, I'll start seeing like titles dropping off, stuff like that. And let's say they announce a new Superman comic, it'll take a little bit. So yeah, I would say about 6 or 7 months is when I think that's when I'll start seeing like real changes. I'll go to the shop and be like, hey, this whole row is empty. What was there? Like, oh, all the Green Hornet and the Green Lantern stuff is gone. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That has to suck for the comic book stores too. I mean, that's a lot of books that are going to be missing.
Yeah, it's a lot of books. And then the store I go to, the owner said that she's, uh, they're a DC shop. That's their main big sellers are DC Comics. And that changes from store to store. Like my old store I used to go to before they retired, it was they were a Marvel shop, but they had a sister store in Torrance that was a DC shop. So it just depends on the location and stuff, whatever. But this store just happens to be a DC store. So right when you walk in on the side wall, bam, DC Comics, and then that's right by the door. And then you go a little down a little bit, and it's all the Marvel stuff. But DC's front and center for them. So if like in a few months, all of a sudden they switch, and then Marvel goes to the front, and then maybe they start bringing the Image comics up from the other rack. You know, maybe you see all of a sudden you'll see half Image, half DC. Like, I mean, we'll see. Like maybe it'll be like the Marvel will be the big rack, and then the other rack will be like half DC, half Image. Maybe that's where they'll put like, you know, Star Wars only. I don't know. So I'll see that in a few months. When I stop in next time, I'll ask. I'm like, hey, what's up with this DC? Like, what do you guys think? But yeah, pretty crazy. That came out of nowhere on Monday, and we were all shocked. The whole comics world was shocked. So, and then we'll see that DC Fandom is next Saturday, the 22nd. So we'll see what happens there. Like, if there's any talk of comics or toys or collectibles, or they just cut it completely. No idea.
Yeah, I still see commercials for it, so it's still on. From what I've heard, they're going to focus on there will be something for Suicide Squad, the game. But it's a 2-day event, right? So I don't know what else they're gonna fill time with.
Yeah, like are they gonna like go, okay, we were gonna talk about this, but forget it. Please, no one bring up what happened last week.
Well, they're lucky it's a stream, so they can just ignore it.
Disable the comment section, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like not that interested in watching it, but now I'm like, oh well, now I gotta check it out. I gotta see what they're gonna talk about. But yeah, that's crazy stuff. And any guys, anything else you guys got? You got any questions or anything? Or
I do. What about you guys saw a lot of the panels for Comic-Con, right? Was Jimmy on any of those?
No, they were saving them for this.
Okay, so it'd be interesting to listen to what Jim Lee has to say. Yeah,
and actually, way back in February, they were gonna have a panel. It was was it a smaller? It was a smaller Comic-Con.
Was it WonderCon?
No, it was before WonderCon. It was a smaller Comic-Con, and they were gonna have a DC publishers panel. And yeah, they fired Dan DiDio, so then Jim Lee was gonna do it by himself, and then they just pulled the whole panel. They canceled it. So I wonder if something like that would happen for next week. If you just see panels just kind of disappear. But yeah, there was no DC stuff at the online Comic-Con. There was nothing.
Yeah, the good thing is they haven't published the schedule yet, so they can change it however they like without anyone noticing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yep, I didn't think about that. You should be like, what are you talking about? We weren't going to have a DC Toys panel anyway. What are you... Man, when I saw they cut the toys, I was like, oh my God. They cut the toys? And I mean, we'll still see toys. They'll just license it to Hasbro, Mattel, and stuff, but that's crazy, dude. Cut the toys. But yeah, if any of you guys have any other questions, leave them in the comments. Or your own thoughts on it, just leave in the comments below. We'll get to them. Crazy, man. Doesn't look good. It's like, I mean, just from looking at this, it kind of looks like DC's days are numbered. Definitely not, maybe not that it'll be shut down, but it's going to be, changes and stuff. But if you guys have anything else, I mean, we can sign off for that. Leave it on a down note. All right, guys. We'll see you all next time, and hopefully it'll be something a little more uplifting than this news. But until then, take it easy.
All right. See ya.
All right. See ya.